Hello, Graham.
Hello, Faith. Hello.
And welcome back, everybody, to Tea at 3. I'm Faith Schmidt, and this is Graham Kerr.
Good.
So, last week, Graham, you brought up the idea of including more people in this conversation,
Yes.
technically, and I added on to that the idea of thinking about how important it is to include more voices in the conversation, pondering the things in the world that affect our day-to-day lives. So
Yeah. You might remember, Faith, when we started this thing such a long time ago now. It's 3 whole months. We were talking about ponds and allowing one's brain to be open, and the media rains its little raindrops in, and eventually our mind gets filled with a certain bias according to where we've exposed ourselves to media. And then when we overflow by doing something, we're really part of that overflow. So we act then in accordance with what we think we know. And how important, therefore, it was for you and I to take the position of reacting immediately to something and then taking a whole week to ponder it. And do you know, I've heard from a couple of my friends who've been trying to do the same thing. And I can't tell you how exciting it was to have someone actually recognize what we were trying to do and speak it back. That's when you said just now, the whole idea of being with other people. If you remember at the beginning, what I was wanting to do was that you have a small group of people with whom you live and love and work, and so do I. So I wanted to take the thing and ponder it and then give them an idea about what I was thinking about and hearing from them, so that I could be a consensus of attitudes, just not all about me. That never happened. I never seemed to get the time to be able to meet with those people. And with the lockdown at the moment, you're really allowed to do that. At least I'm not where I live. So I've missed that, really. And I spent all week trying to work out how we could do it. And we've had one marvelous lady who writes in our comments thing, the fact that it would be exceedingly difficult to do because of the way we make this program and do that. And I haven't had anybody who I know who is intellectually or technically able to tell me how we could do it. So I don't have any, as a result of pondering, I don't have anything except, and you, and I know you're I can see the thoughts going on behind your eyes now. I was struck by another thing that happened last week, and you mentioned the word attitude. You actually said, I think that I need to have the right attitude before I speak. And that just kept on going all week. And it's really hugely changed my position in the last week. But tell me some more, first of all, so that I can see whether I'm on the right track or not, about what you feel about attitude. Tell me what you were meaning by that.
Oh, when I was saying like between the difference between having the attitude of patience and having the attitude of courage.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, with that, like if I'm going into something that I know that I cannot change with the like passion and energy of being able to change it, like that feeling is like you run up against a wall and it creates hopelessness because you're like, this is a thing that I can't change. But I have this like momentum and passion and I want to change all the things around me. So like if I'm
Yes.
saving that attitude for the things that I can change and changing my attitude towards one of patience for the things that I can't.
Yes.
That's more of, yeah.
Okay, well, now let's see whether this meshes with me, because I so want it to. I can't tell you. I suddenly caught a vision of me thinking about the river that we've been talking about jumping into and going upstream, of being filled with negative things, things I can't really change, but I can see that they exist. And because they exist, I want to have a go at them. And I'm one of those people that if I really think about it, I will do the best I can to come up with an alternative or some kind of an idea that I can champion. For example, I once called donuts edible pornography because there was no apparent nutritional value in them, as pornography has no apparent social value to it. And so I thought that's a reasonable combination. And so then I thought to myself, that's not right just to get a cheap laugh over donuts. What I need to do is come up with a healthy donut. And I worked for about a week, almost endlessly, trying to make a healthy donut. And the trouble with most of them is in order to be healthy, the actual density of the materials made into the donut have to be somewhat heavy. Mm-hmm. And this darn donut would never rise to the surface at all. And it was as heavy as lead. And so I couldn't deal with it. But I think that will give you some idea about where I've been going. I see so many things that people do to each other, which is harmful. And over my years that I've seen this, I've started to identify and refine my attitude towards those things which are done that harm other people. And I've set up my sights and focused my attention upon these things in the river. So I've called it the cash flow river, that everything is a buying and selling of something that isn't actually needed. It's developed as a want and then exploited. And I've been so critical then of capitalism. And then I've been critical of the whole healthcare delivery system. And then I've been critical of the church. And by the time I finish, the whole of that river is full of things that I'm judging. And do you know, I'm not a happy guy. I may smile a lot, but it doesn't make me happy. I have been thoroughly miserable as I've watched this because, in a sense, I haven't done what you did. I haven't been patient. I've got on my little high horse and I've criticized these things, but I've always tried to come up with a creative alternative. And I've sort of thought of myself that I am the knight on a white horse, you know, riding in to save humanity. And that's an overstatement about what I think I am, but that's the way I feel. And I think that I've been caught judging in this time together. And I've repented for that. I've changed around. And it's 5 days now. For 5 days, I have not willingly criticized or judged anything. I've simply asked myself the question, would love help? If I loved this president, for example, would that help? Because at the moment I don't. So if I started to try and think how I could, would that help? And it has. And so I have turned a corner in the river because of our conversation and your word, attitude. My attitude was judgmental, and my attitude is I really want to love my way upstream. And I can't tell you what a difference it's made to my life already.
I think you have this tendency to like see the point that I'm going to bring up later and then talking about it at the beginning of these episodes. So I'll have more to say on this later, but I think in those times when all these other opinions and negative things floating around like fill us up. I think that's when community becomes even more important, because if I'm full, I don't have any more room for these things, but maybe someone else does, and they can
Mhm.
have the room to like interpret that, and like through communicating together we're able to like parse more information than just
Yeah.
what I can process on my own, which I know
Yes.
is not like, I don't have a huge capacity for these things, but that's why I surround myself with more and more people in order to get other, I mean, people have completely different ways of processing information than I do that I could never imagine. And that can be like something that could completely change my life if it's worded, just because a sentence is worded in a different way.
Yeah.
And there's like, we've been talking a lot, and I think we're both very empathetic people, and we really want to help and understand and change, but there is no amount of empathy that can equal someone else's experience.
Mm.
So that's why I think it's important to have more people involved in our daily conversations, in our thoughts, whether we figure out how to do that technically here, or if that remains like in our comments, however that ends up being. I absolutely am excited and to keep continuing how to figure out how to get more and more people involved in this conversation.
Good. Good. Then we should do that. As you were talking, I was thinking to myself, looking back over my life, I don't honestly think there's anything that I can actually say initiated with me. Um, I think I've always been someone who is interested in talking things out with somebody else. And I can't credit most of the time a specific person with an idea that I picked up and ran with. It was just lying there. It had been spoken out somehow. There's almost nothing that humankind hasn't thought of beforehand, or that hasn't been written down. But are we alert enough to be able to recognize it and see it and pick it up? And that's where I just feel I was alert enough in looking back over our program last week and heard that word attitude. And everything else seemed to melt away. And when circumstance during that week came to me, which says that the water in that river is not cash flow, it's circumstance and time. And we were born for such a time as this, in such a circumstance as this. And because we are aware of what's going on around us, this piece of life raft, if you will, that comes down that river in terms of an idea, like the word attitude, can be grasped and held, and suddenly you realize this could change everything. And that's where I think the conversation between you and I, to begin with, is really important. This idea of me listening to a 26-year-old is something that I don't do a lot of. And I have a daughter who's 44 now, so she's not 26 anymore. It's important, and I'm grateful. So I put it that way.
Yeah, after last week when you brought up the rock that my grandma had given you, um, my grandma and I talked on the phone, and I told her that we had talked about her rock, and she was all excited about it. And that was like, even though it was kind of a short conversation over the phone, it was kind of one of the more in-depth conversations I've had with my grandma, because I think that she's seen this program and seen that like you and I are communicating over this generation gap, and maybe like for her, I'm not as much of the little girl that I was, like 26 years ago, whatever, the baby, but more so like I can begin to have more serious conversations with my grandma
Yep.
because of something like this. And I don't know, maybe there's more people out there talking with younger people in a different way than they have before. That would be
Yeah.
cool. I don't know. I like I said, I don't talk with people of your age very often, so this is a very unique and cool experience for me to
Wonderful.
have that
Well,
moment.
and
Yeah, there it is.
if at home you missed the thing, that's the rock. That's and she paints these and leaves those all around the place for other people to find. It, which is one. It's like that life raft in the river that comes down. So you were telling me that you were having a thought about, and so is that an appropriate time for you to introduce that thought?
Yes, it's my turn.
Okay.
So, yes, I am moving next week, and in the middle of everything that's going on currently, because my friend tested positive, I am still waiting on test results and have to be isolated again. So I can't see any of my friends to say goodbye. And but through all of that, well, that's, I will say that's why I have this background, is because I kind of feel like it's a very ragged and mountainous experience in my life right now. But through all of this, like, because everything that has happened has brought us to where we are, there are so many positives that have happened through that. Like this program, like a couple positives that we talked about a few seconds ago have come through this experience. And that's because like we would have never thought to like record a video conversation between me and you. That would have never even crossed our minds
Right.
6 months ago. Like,
Yeah.
there are so many little amazing things that have come through times of terrifying change.
Yeah.
And so in the process of like moving from one place to another, and I initially moved here in October in order to be closer to my friends before we moved away for my husband to go to grad school. And half of that time now has been in quarantine. So but a blessing along with that is that like we have opened more of these paths and routines to interact more intimately online than we have before, and like less anonymously and less like robotically, with like more like face-to-face, camera to camera interactions. And so like moving from one place to another is not as much of a like jarring experience as it would have been otherwise, as much as it feels like I'm inside a dryer spinning and spinning and spinning. But I know that there are good paths now to keep in touch with my friends, and good routines that we've established to be in contact and like have that fellowship. So yeah, I think my main point with that is, like you were saying about attitude, just finding the little positives in things that can seem overwhelmingly negative.
Yes. Yeah.
In the midst of change, there are beautiful pink flowers outside of your window and fresh air and sunshine.
Yeah. Yes.
Also, one thing I want to add to that, since you are so passionate about this word attitude, is I actually that's kind of a strong mantra for me, and it has been for a long time in my life, is that like I can choose joy and happiness. Like I can, like, no matter what's going on in my life, that's something that I have control over. I can choose joy. And I actually, so much so, like got the word joy tattooed on my hand.
Oh my.
Just as like in a visual place, so that like this is something that I always see constantly, because I know how ridiculously hard that decision is when you're like overwhelmed with everything going on around you. That feels like an impossible choice, and having a friend remind you it doesn't always work, because you're like, well, you're shut up. This is my thing. Let me be sad, darn it. But like, I can't yell at anybody but myself for this, because this is a reminder to myself to just be like, come on, you can choose a different attitude about this. It's within your power. So that's why it's in my face every day.
So it is in your hands to have a joyful attitude, literally.
I love that. I never thought of it that way. Yeah.
Right? So, and so I desire that too, because I don't think you can be joyful and judgmental at the same time. And I see our nation drowning under judgment of one another's attitudes towards different personalities in politics and everything. There doesn't seem to be anything over which we seem to have anything else but a sharp divide.
Mm.
And I would look at that and I would judge that. That's another one of my judgment things. So what I'm doing now is I'm actually looking for people coming together and caring for each other. And I'm paying attention to those people. And by doing that, I am wanting to do it also. I crossed the road the other day to speak to somebody that I have never really spoken to. I stayed 6 feet apart and had about a 15-minute conversation with someone which was really, really warm and wonderful. And I just wouldn't have thought of it in a million years. I got into my house, the phone goes, and it's a person with whom I have some degree of contact. But I wouldn't have thought it was deep. It wasn't friendly, you know? And he calls me up and he says, we'd like to have you come to supper. We'll sit outside 6 feet apart, but we like to have you to supper. And I felt so welcomed. And all of a sudden, I felt loved. And I had just stopped in my life to love somebody else. And, and it's a different river. It's still got muck in it, but this note in the river that the salmon follows, I think is that I must get back up the river to where I was born. And I think that note in the river, if you will, is a godsend to us to help us to navigate the ways I did. So I think what you're talking about is choosing joy, choosing to be happy, is a way of negotiating the river. We don't always have to become an activist in order to do that. And I've done that for years and years and years, and I am going to change. So I need a little bit of time to be able to work myself into that without being stupid. And so I would like, and this little hiatus of ours is going to help me and to ponder more deeply what it is. So this is what I'm going to propose to us, is this. Why don't we go away and ponder this business of looking for joy, looking for the opportunity of some feedback for something that we are doing to connect lovingly to the world that's going on around us instead of criticism. For every moment that we feel that we're going to be critical, how about finding a way to be loving, to be encouraging somehow, turn it, flip it on its side and change it. And then we can come back and tell ourselves the stories about the things that have taken place, especially with you now, with the disruption of climbing over that very difficult mountain range to make this transition. My prayers will be going with you both, that it will be an easy transition and there'll be love at every corner and the joyful opportunity is in your hands. I'd love that.
Yeah, and in changing your attitude does not in any way like negate the negative things that are happening, but if we can have an attitude of joy, there's so much more strength in that than an attitude of weariness and defeat.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think it's good for us.
Right.
It's even, especially for me, like anxiety for me has very physical ramifications. Like I feel physically sick when I am stressed and anxious. And so like this choice, while I am still, yes, dealing with everything going on in my life, if I choose to be joyous throughout that, I will have more strength and energy in order to deal with those things.
Good. Good. So at home, forgive us not turning up for a couple of weeks, and you'll know we're both going to be looking for joy and people to love.
Yes, everyone at home, we will be pausing at least for next week, possibly a little longer than that, as I am moving and don't know where my computer will be or what internet access I'll have for the next week. But we will be back at some point in some way, and please keep interacting with us through your comments. We really keep those in mind. In fact, I read through a bunch of them recently just in order to think about like keeping our community in mind, and there are some really, really lovely comments, one of which that sticks in my head also said that their only negative comment is how many times I say the word for which I apologize. So please don't let that oh gosh, now I'm gonna think about it every time I say it. Please don't let that scare you away. I promise I'm working on it. Okay, well, we will see you when we see you. Hopefully that is soon. In the meantime, feel free to go back through any episodes that you've missed. There's a lot of good things in there. This has been Tea at 3. I am Faye Schmidt. This is Graham Kerr.
And I'm Graham Kerr.
Yeah.
God bless you.
We'll see ya. And one thing, in order for us to bring more people into this experience, either through you guys leaving a comment, also if you want to share it with your friends, if you found something out of this that could be helpful for someone else, please do so. Also, subscribing really helps us out, as well as leaving a like on the video if you enjoyed watching. Thanks. The tea discus.
Oh, look at it.
We're starting.
Looks...
We're doing a thing.
But I can tell you it was fun doing it. And when it strikes off, it's exactly like tea leaves.
Huh.
That's really what it is. And it brews a very nice cup of tea, I might tell you.
It looks like what you use for curling.
Yeah, doesn't it? Oops.
Oh no!
Oh no.
Well, it's all over the floor now.